Nauseating thump was that poor man's unhelmeted dome smacking against the concrete.
Oh, yeah, Bliet. You okay, Warwick?
Warwick was not okay. Warwick has broken his ankle. He starts with that death wobble, he goes down, and then he slides between the wheels of that 18-wheeler. Hello everybody, my name's Nate. I'm a working paramedic, and today we're going to be looking at some crazy injuries. Everything we look at today is from other channels. I will link them all to the best of my ability in the description. Obviously, huge thanks to them for compiling these individual videos for us to take a look at. So let's get into it. Hate it when that happens. So here we have a fearless Jeep captain attempting to board the police vessel there. Obviously, vehicle into lake, not a good time. You have that impact of the water because, funnily enough, water is actually pretty hard when you hit it really fast. So we often have some pretty good blunt injuries from just driving your vehicle into the lake. You might have C-spine injuries from that whiplash. You might have blunt force trauma to the face or chest, which can cause all sorts of other problems. This guy, in this case, seems to be doing just fine. He gets out and continues to flee from the police. But vehicle into water, you can have some pretty good injuries from that. Oh, all right. So this might be a good one. So this guy, ATV rollers have a very interesting injury pattern. Most of the time, you have some sort of head trauma, but also we have this heavy vehicle and a passenger on top of it. And as the vehicle rolls over, the passenger is ejected, but the vehicle may land on top of that passenger. This can cause a couple of things, one of them being some sort of pulmonary injury like a pneumo or hemothorax. This can progress to a tension pneumo or hemothorax, where we're actually putting pressure on the vessels, particularly the vena cava, which are returning blood to the lungs, which is going to decrease your preload, meaning your heart's not able to pump because it's not being filled up. The solution to this problem is either a finger thoracotomy for us in the field or a needle decompression, or ultimately in the hospital, more of a chest tube. Ultimately, if we don't correct this issue of a hemo or pneumothorax, unfortunately, this can progress to cardiac arrest. In this case, this guy seems to be fine.
That's pretty good, huh?
Like you push up from here?
Yeah, you push up and flow.
Oh, wow. So, fun fact of the day,
good,
if you just do what this poor gentleman did and absolutely suplex your testicles into the ground, they could rupture. So imagine each of your testicles is a nice little balloon. And if you put too much pressure, like you sit on that balloon, they pop. They explode. So, fun image for you there.
Oh, yeah, Bliet. You okay, Warwick?
Warwick was not okay. Warwick has broken his ankle. There are some issues with this because you can have what's called neurovascular compromise, where you're causing damage to blood vessels and nerves, and that can lead to some long-term disability, unfortunately. But management is just splint it. Try not to move it too much. You can either use something straight and hard, like a stick, for example, or a pipe. Straight thing, limb, wrap them together so it doesn't move too much. You want to splint the joint above and below the injury and just take them to the hospital. They'll shoot some pictures and do a better splint than whatever we came up with in the field. Wow. So that could have been really bad. Unfortunately, we have many deaths per year of emergency workers on the side of the road being struck by drivers that just aren't paying attention. Huge risk factor for those of us in emergency medicine, as well as anybody in public safety.
Big magnet go on this, and then like
Crush injury of the thumb, no good at all. So what can happen here? These are very painful. You probably had this happen to you before. If you have something that absolutely crushes your thumb between one heavy movable object and other heavy movable object, your fleshy little thumb right there, it's not going to stand a chance. So you're going to have rupture of blood vessels. You might have fracture of bones. Just horrible, painful, typically you'll have this disgusting, amazing dark purple nail bed for a few weeks to a month, and then that thing will fall right off, and your life will be so much better. Birds aren't real. Yet again, more evidence that birds are not real, and they're actually government plants, clearly trying to off this poor cyclist. I, for one, have great sympathy for this. The first time you have to wrestle some giant poor soul out of their house, just covered in feces, low blood sugar, having a horrible, horrible day, you're going to want to do this afterwards, but to all of you. Ooh, no. Remember what I said about crush nuts? Yeah. Oh, bad day. This guy had a ball straight to the eyeball, possibly causing some sort of corneal abrasion, but more likely more of a blunt trauma to that eyeball. You can actually have a globular rupture. Hopefully in this case that didn't happen, where your eye, which is kind of like a balloon, can basically pop. And you have the inside, the vitreal fluid can actually come out of that ruptured globe, which is that's the fluid inside the eye that keeps it inflated. So yeah, be careful with eyes. Wear eye protection, kids.
Damn it, Piper!
So there's this really interesting branch of emergency medicine that relates to canines. So essentially we have specific providers that are trained to treat dogs, typically SWAT canines, right? If they end up in some sort of incident. But a lot of us actually have some equipment on our ambulances to treat the dogs. So hopefully this particular dog didn't need that help, but she did just get absolutely sat on. So dogs are bouncy. They'll be fine. Oh, no. No. His ankles. So I am also a sufferer of what I like to call the no ligament ankle, where over time, if you roll your ankles enough, you can actually have a breakdown and degradation of, or even just complete separation of some of the ligaments that keep it stable. This leads to hypermobility, as you can see here, as this poor gentleman tries to run, gets off on the wrong foot, and just rolls all of his ankles all over the track. So I'm actually excited for the next generation of VR injuries. I know that sounds horrible, but people are going to do it, so, might as well be planning ahead. We do sometimes encounter people that were in such a VR headset that like punch walls or have knuckle injuries, stuff like that. So just please be aware of your surroundings if you're using some sort of device like this. Oh no. Oh no. Oh, he's fine. I always hate these videos because usually there's like some muscle tearing or something dislocating. So that was a pleasant surprise. Sunburns are no joke, man. Especially something like that. You actually have a literal damage to tissue that happens. The sun is a deadly laser. And over time, if you're exposed to that literal thermonuclear bomb in the sky that gives life to our planet, you can have some pretty severe damage to your skin. That's horribly, horribly painful. Kids are a menace, man. Oh, no, friend, no. That nauseating thump that you heard was that poor man's unhelmeted dome smacking against the concrete. This can cause a lot of crazy injuries, from an epidural to a subdural bleed. The dura being the pad of your brain. Essentially, you can have bleeding either on the outside, inside, or in the middle of that. The epidural, or a bleed on the outside, progresses very quickly because there are a lot of arteries, and it's more of an arterial bleed, meaning it's a higher pressure bleed. So you're going to very rapidly have an increase in intracranial pressure, or the pressure inside your skull. That's going to push the brain. You can have the brain be shifted inside the skull, causing what's called a midline shift. For this gentleman, I'm more inclined that he probably would have had an epidural versus a subdural, which is more of a venous bleed, meaning it's a little bit slower. It takes usually 2 to 3 days to manifest itself. He may have a worsening symptoms like a headache, maybe some neurologic changes. Best case for this guy is he just has a concussion, which will resolve itself. If this ever happens to you or your buddy, keep a very close eye on them. Go in and get checked out. And if I can't convince you to do that, just keep a close eye on him if he has any progressing neurological symptoms, like suddenly I can't move one side of my body or the other, or I'm having a hard time speaking. Just go in and see what a real doctor has to say about what's going on. Oh, man. This is a form of auto versus pedestrian accident that we get more frequently in some areas than others. I work in a very rural area now, but I used to work in the city, and we get these pretty regularly. Essentially, what can happen here is a vehicle comes along and just knocks you off balance, and as you're going down, you put your arms out to brace, which causes your first injury, which is usually to your wrist and elbow, and then you smack your dome on the ground, which can cause all of the injuries we've already talked about before. You can have some pretty major chest trauma if it's a very high energy impact, and that can lead to things like a pneumothorax or a pericardial tamponade, or even just some broken ribs. But yes, these are horrible. Any sort of auto versus pedestrian is a really bad day because the pedestrian has nothing to protect themselves with, such as a vehicle, which is literally designed to keep all of the occupants safe. And then you have a many 1,000-pound missile, the vehicle, that is completely uninterested in stopping or slowing or changing course when it strikes something at like a soft, meaty 150 to 200-pound human being on the side of the road or on a bicycle. Please wear a helmet in these situations, folks. If you're not wearing a helmet, you're not protecting your brain, and your brain is the thing that provides your quality of life. So if you break some bones, those heal. If you even lose a limb, you have prosthetics. If you damage your brain, there's nothing that we can do for you, unfortunately, at this point. So that might be changing. Shout out Neuralink. Oh, no. So those bike seats are really just horribly designed when you're thinking about the ergonomics of how your testicles sit. If you're a man, might rupture your nuts. Horrible time. Don't do that. Theoretically, you might be able to cause a torsion too if you have like some weird twisting forces, which is where essentially the testicles wrap around themselves and strangulate themselves by decreasing blood flow. Also a horrible, painful emergency. If you think it's possible that you have one, go to the ER. You've got several hours to fix it, but get it taken care of immediately. So this guy is unbelievably lucky. He starts with that death wobble, he goes down, and then he slides between the wheels of that 18-wheeler and somehow is not crushed. Super, super lucky. You see he gets up and starts walking. We see that very frequently in these accidents where even if someone is very hurt, you have that initial adrenaline or catecholamine dump where they stand up and they start walking away, and then they realize later that they were actually quite injured and they have broken bones. I've had patients with crazy injuries get up and walk away from accidents and then ultimately need to be transported to the hospital via ambulance because of that initial adrenaline dump. So it's something we see quite regularly, actually.
7, 1, 2.
Oh, no. So that's no good. Obviously, we had some hyperextension of that neck. This can cause damage to the spinal cord, which unfortunately in the neck is the worst possible place to have a spinal cord injury. In C3 through C5, those are your cervical vertebrae that innervate the diaphragm, and that is how you breathe. If you lose those, if EMS doesn't get there very quickly and put a breathing tube in, you are going to die from asphyxia. Basically, you're not breathing because your diaphragm is no longer able to accept impulses from the brain, as well as you're going to have some damage to your cardiovascular response. Basically, all the blood vessels get really, really relaxed because they're no longer getting signaling from the brain that they need to stay tight to be able to keep pumping that blood around. In this case, this guy seems fine. You can see here what I was talking about earlier, where this gentleman actually puts his arms out to catch himself and probably just shoots his radius and all that straight out the back of his elbow. I've seen it happen. Not really. It doesn't happen that often, but it could. Unfortunately, when you have these accidents where you're coming off of some sort of small vehicle, like a bicycle or a scooter, or even a skateboard, the first reaction for most people is to put your arms out where you're going to catch yourself, and you're going to have crazy elbow, shoulder, wrist injuries as a result of that. Oh. So this poor lady, she just tried to chop this humongous log and took an axe straight to the face. So fortunately it was the back of the axe, but that's going to cause some blunt damage, maybe to the orbits, which is the bony structure right here, maybe to the jaw. You can cause a Lefort fracture. Damage to all those little tiny bones in the face can be hugely difficult and hugely expensive to repair. It's usually going to be in the realm of a plastic or reconstructive surgeon, which is never cheap, unfortunately.
Jump!
See, these are not friends, people. These are clowns that just want to see you injured. Don't surround yourself with clowns. Here we have an example of what I was talking about earlier, where you have the person that on the vehicle crashes into the other vehicle, out of adrenaline, gets up and goes, "Oh no, I'm hurt," and collapses out of the ground over here. See, this is why I don't do box jumps. That's exactly what I imagine is going to happen every time I see that box and I try to jump onto it. I'm going to fall off, do the thing he just did where I put my arms back, catch myself, and then shoot my humerus out of my shoulders. Huh. So I believe that was a jerk and clean to a press to a throw, which is pretty neat. I can't do that. Can you do that? Probably not. Good for him, I suppose. Man, people are awful. So very likely, this poor man just fractured his coccyx, which sounds... Basically, you have this tiny little bone that sticks out on the bottom of your pelvis, and that's your tailbone. And if you land hard enough on your butt, like this poor man just did, because again, he's surrounded by clowns who are not his real friends, you can fracture it, and that takes forever to heal. You have to sit on this little donut thing that has a little hole in the middle for your butt bone to stick out where you were injured. Horrible time. I've heard it's a very painful injury to recover from. So yeah, make better friends.
No voilà. Si c'est né.
More spinal trauma, more neck trauma. Guess what he's gonna do with his arms? Ouch. A little rib bruise too.
2, 1.
So these fences are actually terrifying. You ever see like these big black spike fences? People get impaled on those. They have these sharp metal prongs, and people try to hop them or whatever, and they can get impaled. Usually like their limbs or their legs or whatever, but you can have some really serious puncture injuries just from those little black fences. So pro tip, don't hop fences.
2, 1. Dude, I swear to God. Dude, that broke his...
Hopefully it didn't actually break his effing neck, but it's possible. If you land on your neck in that position, you're hyperextended, you might do that. You also can have other like disc injuries and stuff like that that can come from these spinal injuries. But yeah, folks, be careful with your neck. It kind of keeps you alive. So Careful.
Ready?
Ladder injuries are also a thing. They happen quite regularly too. Especially around Christmas, you have people that maybe are a little bit older, probably shouldn't be on a ladder, falling off of them quite frequently. There's like a gravity storm every year around December 1st where everybody climbs a ladder and falls off of it. And then we end up getting called a lot, which gives us something to do, I suppose. Oh. See, this guy is wearing a helmet. And because he's wearing a helmet, he's probably okay. He probably has some road burn on his elbow. It looks like he struck it here, but if he hadn't had the helmet on, he would likely be in much worse shape. So good on him. Oh no! Ouch! I assume that cracking was the deck and not his shin breaking. Oh man. Oh. Yeah, so he hit his foot up. I think that sound was his foot breaking the board on the side of that pier. So, yeah, you have a lot of little bones in your feet. They're actually really complex. And breaking any of them is horribly painful. It means you can't really use that leg for a while. So, just be careful. I don't know. Maybe what I'm learning today is we should all always be in Michelin suits at all times. That might help keep us alive. It would seem that in the background of this video, who the owner of this establishment has their child, who is adorable and is laughing along with all of us as this poor soul just takes it to the face. It's like that video. You know that video of the guy with the Sprite? Hold on, I'm gonna look it up.
Man might have the Star Wars Lego set
Yeah,
Death Star,
here we go.
but can he chug a sparkling water and not burp? Oh my gosh! What do I do?
Never gets old. There's nothing educational from that. I just think it's really funny. Hope you're good, man. That's a very expensive Phantom drone. Sorry, bud. Okay, hold on. This guy puts his foot through the windshield, doesn't use that momentum at all, and then just steps into the ocean. That's ocean? Lake. That's pretty good. Fun fact, windshields are meant to kind of break when they're put under pinpoint pressure. We see what we call a star pattern on the windshield of certain vehicles in car accidents, and actually helps us determine whether or not the occupants were wearing their seatbelts. Because if there is windshield starring right in front of where the driver or passenger was, we can tell they weren't wearing their seatbelt. They came up and their head hit the windshield, causing that starring. So again, windshields are designed to do that and crack in a manner where there aren't going to be a lot of sharp edges. So that's very likely why that happened in this case. Oh, slip and slides. Implements of disaster and destruction, but very fun. Another reason not to do box jumps. Well, whatever that was, I hope you learned something today. Maybe if it's just wear a helmet and don't crush your nuts. I mean, that's a great place to start, I suppose. But either way, until next time, thanks for watching. If you liked it, please like. If you want to subscribe, please do. And I will see you in the next video.